Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Just giving everyone a second more to join. Okay, as we have people coming in, I'd like to welcome you all. A very warm welcome to everyone to our community of practice on strengthening support for children with learning differences. This is our second session today, and this session is on teacher capacity building and classroom support for children with learning differences. As people keep coming in, I would request you to please drop in your name, organization, and what part of the world you're joining us from. Mercy, could we move to the next slide, please? Please do drop it in the chat. Great. And while everyone is joining in, we are very grateful today to be joined by Archana Rao and Sabha Saeed, who are regional managers in Perkins, India, and Dr. Abebayu, who's the founder and managing director of FANA Ethiopia, and Ashchilyu Demise, who's the Chief Monitoring and Evaluation and Resource Mobilization Officer of FANA Ethiopia. FANA in Amharic language actually means dazzling and guiding lights. And today I'm hoping that both of these orgs are going to be our guiding lights on this session as well, or as for us on this inclusive education journey. A few guidelines for us before we go into this community of practice. This is a very safe space to please share your opinions and experiences. Please raise your hands, engage in the chat, use reactions, emojis to interact with one another. We'd love your full attention if possible. Please do switch off from other tasks, turn on your video if that's a possibility, and please feel free to drop in any questions that come along the way in the chat. Both all of the speakers and we will be looking at the questions coming in and ensure that those are answered by the end of the session. Moving on, for those of you who do not know about Global Schools Forum, I would like to tell you a little bit about GSF and about the Learning Differences project that we are currently doing. Global Schools Forum is a collaborative community, an innovation accelerator, and a partnership builder for non-state organizations working to improve education at scale for underserved children in low and middle income countries. Since our establishment in 2017, we have grown our community to 169 organizations spanning 60 countries, collectively running or supporting over 1.3 million schools and ECD centers and providing education to more than 133 million children. The organizations in GSF's community are standalone schools, a diverse set of school networks and ECD centers, and organizations providing core support services to non-state schools and to government education systems. To tell you a little bit about the work that we are doing on learning differences, some of you may be working with children with learning differences, often referred to as learning disabilities. 9 in 10 children with disabilities under the age of 5 live in low and middle income countries. Yet many education systems in these contexts struggle to provide quality support. We know that many organizations are working to support children, but there's still much to learn about the approaches being used and the challenges faced. That's why GSF, in partnership with Oak Foundation, is conducting a scoping study on learning differences with 2 objectives. One, we want to identify the priorities, needs, and challenges of education organizations in low and middle income countries and explore how we can better support these organizations. We are achieving these objectives by conducting landscape analysis through research, consultations, and focus group discussions. Based on conversations we have had with many of you, we are conducting a 5-part CoP series, the first of which we had in the beginning of May on culturally relevant screening tools for early screening and diagnosis. Our second session today is on scalable teacher training and classroom support models for inclusive education. Session 3, 4, and 5 will touch upon inclusive curricula and adaptive assessment strategies, differentiated instruction and inclusive pedagogy in low resource classroom settings, and engaging caregivers and communities to reduce stigma and support inclusive education. I will be sharing these invites with all of you as we progress in these sessions. To briefly touch upon what we learned in our first session, we were very grateful to have Learning Differently and Dyslexia Organization Kenya, who spoke about the different types of invisible disabilities and about screening and diagnosis, the tools that they use, the right age to be diagnosed, and who can do the diagnosis. Essentially, the three broad takeaways from the last session were: one, we spoke about locally rooted tools that are practicable and scalable. Simple low-cost tools in local languages, especially print-based, work well in low-resource settings. They're easy for teachers to use with minimal training and can be scaled across similar contexts. Early screening unlocks support but needs the system strength. Screening works at ages 4 to 6 and enables early support and shifts how children are seen and perceived. But unfortunately, the uptake is limited by stigma, weak referral systems, and a lack of teacher training, something that we will touch upon today. And finally, co-creation and peer exchange drive relevance and scale. Tools co-designed with the users and validated locally are more likely to be used and adopted. With this context, we are now going to move into a quick icebreaker so that we get to know our participants a little bit better and can get your views on what you think inclusive education is. I would request all of you to please either scan the QR code on the screen or go to menti.com and put in the code that is below. Please let me know if anyone's facing any trouble. I have also dropped in the link in the chat. All good. I'm just going to present my screen. Is my screen visible to everyone? Yeah.
Yes, it
Yes,
just
yes.
it's now up.
And is everybody able to log in? I'm just going to begin. Please let me know when you can see the first question. In one word, what makes a great inclusive teacher? Any thoughts that come to your mind? The one word you think makes a great inclusive teacher? Level of empathy, supportive, flexible, skills. Learner. Oh, that's nice. Care, awareness, non-negotiable principles. Level of empathy has come up, empathetic, adaptable. All great answers, and I'm sure that our presenters today will be addressing all of these through their presentations. Moving on to the next question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are teachers in your context about supporting learners with learning differences? It's a sliding scale. Please just drop in how confident you think learners are in your specific context. It started off strong, but I see it sliding down. Just giving it a minute more for everybody to put in. Okay, 4.9. It started off with a 6. So I'm glad to know that there are organizations and countries where teachers are more confident. And the last question, this is more open-ended. One thing you wish every teacher knew about inclusive education is? But these are such lovely answers. One shoe doesn't fit all. It's doable and manageable. You just have to have the can-do mindset, differentiated instructions, inclusive, all children are not the same and all learn differently. Who all can help to make it really inclusive? It's every child's right to learn. I think we are all aligned on that each child is different, potential in every child. These are really wonderful answers, and I think it broadly aligned that every child is different. And through our presenters today, we are going to go into understanding a little bit more about this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much for all of those wonderful responses and for engaging. To begin with, we are going to have a quick concept deep dive into inclusive teacher education. Perkins is based in India, and they will be talking about the problem, the challenge, and how they are solving the problem in the Indian context. And similarly, FANA, that is based out of Ethiopia, is going to talk about their context, their challenges, and how they are overcoming the challenges. Post which we will go into case studies by each of these organizations. I'm going to hand it over to Sabha and Archana to begin.
Thank you so much, Tejaswini. So good evening, everyone. My name is Archana, and I have my colleague Sabha with me. We are regional managers at Perkins, India. Perkins is a global organization. We have a 200-year-old history of working with children with disabilities and teacher training, and we are right now across 17 countries working globally. We are very grateful for GSF to invite us to participate in this COP session, because I think it's very, very close to what we do, and we believe that this engagement will not just allow us to share what we do or what we know, but also to learn from all of you what more we can do in our work and take back home our lessons as well. So we're very happy. We've received a lot of, some of your responses for the pre-session questionnaire that was sent across to you. And we hope that by the end of the session, some of those queries or thoughts or, ideas that you have shared will be kind of responding through our, interaction here. So can we kind of have the presentation, please? Thank you, Tejaswini. So feel free to use the chat, feature to share your thoughts, responses, and questions as we go along. Before we begin, I wish to ask one question. So use the chat again. Who does a teacher influence the most? So if you can have some responses.
Students.
Students. Okay. Students, absolutely. Okay. I don't know.
There are responses in the chat: students, environment, and children's,
right.
More students, learners, and parents.
Thank you so much. Child. Okay, we'll take it up from here. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you may continue sharing the entire system themselves. Okay, so can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. The slide before this, please. Thank you all for your responses. The one person who's most influenced by a teacher is a student, like most of you have shared. This has been the most traditional way of seeing a teacher's influence in society. It has been defined that the teacher is a person who has the knowledge and expertise to deliver quality education to students. Moving beyond this traditional definition, a teacher's role is expansive, and Perkins set out to explore how and who else can be influenced by a well-trained teacher in order to ensure quality learning experiences for every child. Next slide, please. So the problem statement that we are addressing here through this presentation is, although inclusive education, especially in the context of India, inclusive education is part of policy and school mandates across the country, but translating this vision into daily classroom practice still remains a challenge. Next slide, please. This CoP session seeks to unpack the specific capacity gaps faced by teachers and co-develop approaches grounded in real experiences that can empower them confidently to implement inclusive practices. So through almost 200 years of experience of working with children with disabilities, Perkins has worked closely with the teacher community in order to understand the needs of teacher training. And we realized that there are many aspects that needed to be addressed in order to create a comprehensive, sustainable, replicable, and inclusive training program for the teachers. We began listening to all the stakeholders who either directly or indirectly impact the child's learning outcomes. I request my colleague Sabha to take over.
Thank you, Archana. Next slide, please. Okay, so realizing that a teacher training program cannot be purely based on what the teacher needs, but must have a holistic approach, like something like a 360-degree framework. So in these upcoming slides, you will see some of the questions that have influenced our teacher training program. So let's first begin with what the child is looking for. I hope this the print is readable for you.
I think if you can just kind of zoom a little bit more.
So it's like, children want to know whether they'll ever be able to go to school like their sister or brother does. And if they do, will they ever be understood by everyone there? Will they be able to make friends like every other child does? Will their dreams matter? So now what we would want you to do is to use chat to put into certain other questions that you think a child might be asking. Any thoughts? Please use the chat. Anything that you think a child would ask per se inclusion. We have some questions there, but do any of these resonate with you?
Sabha, do you want to read all the questions quickly, maybe?
Yeah, okay. So the child might be asking, when will I go to school? Who will teach me? Will I get to participate? Yeah, I think we have one in chat which says, why can't I do what I know how to do it? Thank you for the response, and various other questions. So maybe we can move on to the next slide. So I think we have another one in chat. Who do I tell when something bad happens? Absolutely. Yeah. Will I be safe there? And if I'm not safe, where do I go? Are they going to understand what they are taught? Absolutely. Thank you for sharing these thoughts. So we move on to what the family is looking for. Some of the questions that might come up would be, will my child be safe in school? Will they be able to learn? Will someone guide me how to teach my child in the best possible way? Will what I say matter? Will I be valued? How will I know what other families like us are doing? Now, similarly, if you have come across any questions with the families that you work with, we would love to know what they are. And if you can just put them in chat, please. Will my child be safe in school? Yes, absolutely. So any concerns that the families have shown you when they talk to you?
Will they fit in and feel accepted? Will my child lead a normal life one day?
Absolutely. That's something that we keep coming across.
Please keep setting the questions that come to your mind as we go along.
Would my child be taken care of properly by teachers? What makes my child different? Will they be respected and treated as an equal? I love this. Yes, that is what families are looking for. And these are some of the concerns that we have here. Thank you for sharing these. So who else do you think the questions came from? Tejaswini, could we go to the next slide, please? Archana, you want to read out the
chat? I think that's a very beautiful question here. Have seen parent asking about a specific behavior. For instance, the child remains silent at home. Is it the case at school? I think that's very, very relevant. There's another very beautiful question. How can I help my child? I think most parents want to do that and they want to know more. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing all those thoughts there. So let us now look at what the school authorities want to know. They have their own questions, such as, do we need to redesign the whole school now? Where would the resources come from? We have a syllabus to complete. How do we balance inclusion with this? What if other parents complain and regular students drop out of school? What then? And the biggest of the question is, are trained teachers really available? Now, again, let's do that exercise again, and we would love to know some of your concerns that have come up when you've started working with schools and making them inclusive. Please use the chat.
Who's going to give us the training? Where do we bring more time for external training? Time. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Any more thoughts? What would the school authorities want to know? I think that's yeah, at least in our context, the question of finance pops up as soon as an intervention is needed, where you need a pedagogical shift and more resources. That's absolutely a concern across all organizations. How do we bring up the intervention to parents as they might snap back? Okay. Yeah, the fear. For how long will the training take? And will the children disrupt the class? The parents of typical individuals question the school when they give admission to children with disability. Oh my, this is so good to read. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Is training not expensive for inclusive classroom? We'll let you know. How do we handle diverse learners where we are not supported well? Okay. And what is our sustainability plan? Beautiful.
Oh, I love
Thank you
this
so
question.
much.
Yes. All right. So till now, we have heard from the child, the family, the school authorities, right? So, but how can we miss out the communities around the child, the school, and the organization? Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
There's a very beautiful question from the school authorities. Where do we start and stop? It's like a never-ending thing. Yeah. How will we assess the content mastery? Absolutely. Yeah. Move on, Sabha.
So going on to the communities. So communities may or may not be supportive of families of children with disabilities. However, there are many questions which need to be addressed. So some of them are, why does a child with a disability have to go to school? What are the benefits? Why can't they just be institutionalized? Now your turn again to put into chat some of the questions that you have come across when you've started working with communities. Any thoughts here?
Are our children safe at school? Yes, communities are concerned. Do schools have the capacity to support learners with disability? Great question. Why are our children different? Why mainstream schools? Send them to special schools. They fit there. Yes.
Yeah, we get that a lot too. A lot.
Yes, yes. Any more? You can keep sharing and
we can go on to the
letting
next.
us know. How do we deal with stigma?
Oh, yes.
Totally.
And this is also very culturally specific because of the different kind of communities that we have around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And in a country like India, it's like, which is so vast and there's so much of diversity, the communities totally change with, a few kilometers.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah, there's one more question, one more thought. Yeah, how will other children feel in presence of our kids? Can the school give scholarships to our children? Yes, funding is a great issue. Do they have special schools while including them with our children who are normal? Don't they have? Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. So what we just saw here were some of the concerns and barriers of teacher training which need to be addressed. And by listening carefully to each of the questions asked by the child, family, school, and community, which we just saw on the slides and also shared by some of you here in the chat box, it is pretty clear that the one person who knows each of them is the teacher. She is our go-to resource. And this led us to design a holistic quality curriculum for teacher training addressing the following points. Training teachers with the right technical knowledge to support children with different learning needs has been one of the components of our training program. But we realized it wasn't enough. The other areas where a teacher could help and offer support are: 1, to guide parents and communities on strategies and techniques that can be used with children, supporting them in the process of learning and strengthening the opportunities for the child socially, emotionally, educationally, and psychologically. 2, support other members of the teacher community to ensure inclusion is a participatory approach. 3, contributing to strengthening the systems within the school or organization in order to build a model where every child can learn, not just be enrolled or attending in school, but learning is what we mean here. And last but not the least, an empowered teacher has the power to influence policy decisions that can impact the educational practices for children with learning differences. I'll request Archana to come in here.
Yeah, thank you, Sabha. So based on the current area of inquiry from across all stakeholders, the team has developed an influence map. We want to just call it an influence map, I think. Maybe we want to reduce the size. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. We just thought we'll create an influence map just to kind of see in one shot how a teacher who's a champion of inclusive education is getting influence. So we see that the teacher's knowledge, skill, and abilities help to strengthen the contributions of the community, family, school, and government policies, and vice versa. This exchange of learning further impacts the learning outcomes of the student itself. At Perkins, we realize that training is a continuous process, and reviewing the current process is key to improving the learning for all teachers. We not only focus on planned training, we also conduct need-based training to support the teacher community to further the vision of creating an inclusive learning space within the schools and outside with the help of the other stakeholders. So we see that it's a very symbiotic relationship, and the teacher is the one who holds it all together to ensure that the student's learning outcome is at its best. So all the questions that like Sabha mentioned are all actually talking about all the concerns, all the beliefs, all the fears, and everything that actually coexists in our space. And we thought that we'll move forward taking it from there. Yeah, thank you so much.
Before we close, I just want to take up this comment in chat. It says, isn't the student also under direct influence of others and not just through the teacher? And yes, and we will be coming to that, but in a bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabha, Archana, and thank you to the participants for engaging. I'm now going to hand it over to Dr. Abe and Ashche to speak about the Ethiopian context. Ashche, Dr. Abe, over to you. Are you having? Yeah, sorry, please go.
Could you please let Dr. Abe in?
He is in, we have let him in. There's nobody in the waiting room.
On the other device, he has two devices.
Yes. I think both have been let in.
Right.
Would you prefer if the FANA team goes, if the Perkins team goes ahead with their case study while if Dr. Abe is having trouble joining? And then we can talk about the Ethiopian context together?
Yes, please.
Okay. Archana, Sabha, would you mind if we begin with the case study as well, and then we can talk about that?
I think we're good to go.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Thank
if you could just share the second set of slides.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is this
the slide ahead? Yep. Thank you. Thank you. No, the one before. There is a slide before this. Thank you so much. Yeah, hi again. So we're just happy that, there's so many questions flowing. In fact, I was just rereading the questions, and it's very interesting to see how all of us are thinking so similarly. So, at Perkins, our belief is every child can learn. That's the premise we start. And I'm sure all of us here who are gathered feel the same. And this can become a reality only when teacher capacity building goes beyond what the teacher does within the classroom. giving the teachers the necessary tools, making them aware of who all can support them in the process of inclusive education gives them confidence and motivation to do better for every child. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So at Perkins, we follow something called as the model program approach, which has been developed over 10 years of research and has been applied in 13 countries today. This is a 3 to 5 year evidence-based transformation process, which actually, when we partner with organizations, we ensure that between 3 to 5 years, the schools or the organizations are able to become master model program, who are able to influence others in their neighboring locations, creating a ripple effect. Schools become centers of excellence, leading to widespread adoption of inclusive education. So the model program basically is an approach, and we believe that quality and continuous work and translation of the work is exactly how things will shift to create inclusivity as a way of life. Next slide, please. So doing it the Perkins way, and we really like, the Perkins DNA actually imbibes inclusion as a way of, work itself, way of existence, way of teaching, a way of life that we call. So what do we see here is a model year for, a journey of one school's transformation. And how do we go about this? We do a school selection, we create a core team, we do a baseline assessment, we have an annual action plan that's created, and we use the Perkins International Academy training units, we use the need-based training, we do on-site implementation and support, and we do an inline assessment. Now, all this looks very technical, but the beauty is from the start till the end, at every stage, the teacher is involved. Every teacher is involved, and that makes all the difference. So now let us, next slide, please. Let us now understand this model program approach through a story of transformation. And I hand it over to Sabah. Thank you.
Thank you, Archana. Could we go to the next slide, please? So we will take a look at a case study of one of the schools we are working in to try and see how working with the teachers here impacted the various areas we talked about in the first session. And hopefully, even answer the question that had come up in chat about different stakeholders impacting the child. So what we will be bringing out in this case study is if the teacher collaborates with all these stakeholders and is trained to collaborate with all these stakeholders, the impact on the child will be manyfold. So on the left of the screen is the timeline of the model school program, which Archana just explained. What I want you to note here is that we included teachers at every step of the process, right from the boot camp to assessing the program on the Perkins quality indicators, to drafting an action plan and the final implementation. It was the teacher group which was the main star cast. And from our experience, because teachers were valued right from the start, we did not really encounter much resistance. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. The school we chose for this case study is located in a rural area with a population of less than 15,000, and this is as per our last census in 2011. It's a small municipality with a high percentage of population consisting of the marginalized scheduled castes and tribes, which was almost about 35%. And another reason for selecting this partner was sustainability. If you see on the screen, you will know what I mean. So with the kind of reach they have, coupled with building teacher capacity, we were sure to reach out to more schools in the community, thus making it more replicable. Next slide, please. What you see on the left of the screen is how we quantify the results of the Perkins quality indicators for the purpose of progress monitoring. In this case, there were 3 clear areas of improvement, which we decided to work on in the first year. So if you see the first picture, this is the area under which we empowered the teachers to work with parents and increase their say in their child's training programs. Like teachers might be the experts in the special ed field, but it is the parent who is the expert of their own child. And we believe that if teachers and parents work as co-workers, they can achieve just so much more. When the teacher trained the parent in how to work with their child, it led to better learning outcomes. And since parents felt valued, it led to improved parent engagement. In this picture, you see both parents and teachers in the same frame. One of these teachers was in charge of the parent engagement. And this is an example of how we train teachers in building bridges with parents. It helps the teacher in their work and also positively impacts the child. And I should also mention here that in this picture, the teacher who was in charge of parent engagement was himself a parent of a child with disability. So we found a connection there. Now, the second picture depicts our work in increasing technical capacity in teacher training. In this picture, one of the students is deaf but learns alongside non-disabled peers. She is being taught through a 3D working model. Teachers have also had training in the Indian Sign Language, but there is usually an interpreter in classes. Teachers have been trained to follow the UDL principles while writing lesson plans. Somewhere along the way, we also realized how teachers were constantly worried about not being able to cater to non-disabled students in their classes, while, like all the time being worried about including students with disabilities into the lessons. But for us, inclusion is all encompassing. So every child had to be included. The third area was enhancing program capacity. Since it was a school very new to inclusion, processes were not in place. We worked with the teachers in putting in a structure, which in turn helped the teacher in her work. Now, Archana will be explaining that in the next slide.
Thank you, Sabha. Like Sabha said, Bugger, which is a place, is a real small place, and finding trained special ed teachers was a problem. The ones which were there were young and not very high on experience. One more challenge that we faced here in India is that most of our special educators are trained in single disabilities. One might be trained in intellectual disability or visual impairment or hearing impairment and so on. But in an inclusive classroom, this was a problem. Through our Perkins International Academy training program, we first started their training across all disabilities, giving inputs in every disability. We couldn't be there all the time. So, leveraging on the value of technology, we introduced online training for the teachers. But one thing which we were sure of was that we didn't want to be an organization which conducted training and left. We wanted to make sure that taught practices were being implemented in the classroom. This is what we call the transference of the Perkins DNA. Our training methodology included role play, improv, and also real-time coaching, for which we joined the teachers in their classroom. What we see below, the first picture, is an IEP, an individualized education plan, and home visit calendar embedded into the main school calendar. What I want to bring out here is that the teachers were trained in building strong student-centered individualized education plans, but we didn't stop just there. Experience has taught us that new things are often taken up with enthusiasm, but slowly fade off with oblivion, even before their value was seen. Earlier, we talked about teachers being trained to build school policies and systems. This is an example of how we do that. The teachers were trained on seeing the value of a robust IEP cycle built into the school system itself for its longevity. Sabha?
Next slide, please. So how did all this help the teacher? I mean, we see a lot of data on the screen, but how does it help the teacher? So one, student enrollment went up, and this was possible because the teacher was motivated and confident in taking in students with different disabilities into their classroom, and not just be limited in teaching students from their own field of single specialization. Two, the enrollment also went up because the teacher created parent networking groups and word gets around. Three, there was a third element to this, which I want to talk about. The teacher trained groups of young fellows in the philosophy of inclusion. This young group went out into the community, raising awareness about inclusive education. And this led to more students coming in. And all this happened because the teacher was trained in looking at the whole picture of inclusion and not just building the technical capacity. Technical capacity, very important. But the whole picture, we think it is even more so. So what you see is that increase in the rate of child-guided assessments and interest-based student-centered IEPs. Now, this was a direct result of teacher training in the technical special ed aspect. But what I again want to bring out here is what the impact of increased parental involvement means for the child. Children with disabilities struggle with transferring concepts learned in classrooms to the real world. We all know that. What we saw was that since teachers were trained to coach parents in how to achieve learning goals, it was easier to embed these learning goals in the child and parents' natural everyday routines, enhancing functional learning for the child. This led to better student autonomy and participation. Archana, over to you. I think we have the
These are some of the pictures of the parent groups created by the teachers. The teacher in charge was himself a parent of a child with disability. So it looks so wonderful to see that we could help the parents of that school divide themselves into age, according to the age group of their children, and have these beautiful groups that were created under different titles, right? Giving it an Indian name, aligning with what they see, for their child's growth, right? So, sorry. Okay.
That's okay. I'm just taking some
Okay.
chat separate.
Okay. So can we go to the next slide, please? To the left is a picture of a direct teacher training, and on the right is a picture of a role play with the teachers. They were guiding them on, how to open a conversation with a parent about their child. Many times there is this resistance about what should I ask, or what I'm asking, is it right? So framing the right questions, giving the right emotion, and responding correctly matters a lot in building parent rapport. So that's what we try to do through the role play here. Next slide, please. These are our young group of fellows who are non-educators out in the community, creating awareness after being briefed on inclusion by the teachers of the school. In India, especially in rural India, communities play an important role. They are run by village elders who are rooted in tradition and conservatism. When a teacher works with them, guiding them to be open to the idea of children with disabilities going to school, it ensures inclusion for sure. The next slide, please. These are some of the glimpses of our online training. So we don't, really forget the teachers once we are not there physically. So we're always present, and we are available for any queries at any point of time during the working hours. Yeah, next slide, please. And yeah, so middle picture is of the teachers helping and mentoring other teachers. So we always believe that it's very good to work in teams. The school has these mentoring and sharing meetings every Wednesday. So, a designated date, time allows the teacher to plan the rest of the day, right? So these days are built into the school calendar. So that is conformity to what everybody wants to do together. On the right is a PTM, that's the parent-teacher meeting for annual goal writing. Teachers lead it along with the child, family, special ed, and other therapists. So an annual goal for a single child is prepared with a team of people. And if you see in the picture, there's also the child sitting right there with the parent, as though there is, a certain sense of involvement at this point of time. And I'm sure if there are older children who are more verbal, we could have that involvement into the plan as well. On the left is a picture of the core team trained by Perkins India, composed of the school administrators, special ed representatives, general education teacher representatives, amongst others. With a promise to transform one school at a time, we have taken our first step in creating a comprehensive, sustainable, holistic training module that invites and includes everyone who impacts a child's learning every day. Thank you so much. We could just show the last slide. We have our contact details in case anybody wishes to reach out to us. It's archana.rao@perkinsindia.org and sabah.saeed@perkinsindia.org. Thank you so much, everyone.
I just wanted to bring out one point, Archana, before we finish, about the question that came up in chat about a child being influenced by a lot of other stakeholders. So what we are trying to say here is that we have access to the teacher, so we use the teacher and train them to be in touch with all the other stakeholders, and that has a very positive impact on the child's learning.
Yeah. So, so adding to that, Sabah, if I may just share, so I think because there is this one point of contact, there is everything that's aligned. So, it's not, so we don't have to reach out individually to every parent or every community, and strengthening that makes it sustainable. Strengthening the teacher in the school makes it sustainable. Yeah. So there's another question, Sabah. Do you work in public or? government
Before
run
that,
schools.
could we take up the question that came up before? Do you have therapy centers embedded in
Oh,
schools to
yes.
supplement education for children with disabilities? Yes and no. There are schools which have a resource center, but even though they have a resource center, it is basically used to, when the child is being assessed and they're trying to find out which class the child would fit in, what program the child should, be in. That's the time that they use the resource center. Otherwise, we kind of think that it is good idea for the child to be in a classroom and maybe come out when, the components of the expanded core curriculum are being taught. Do you work in public or government-run schools? Archana, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we choose to work largely in the government-run schools because we feel that the government schools have the last mile reach, and we are able to reach out to more students with the given resources and also the kind of training that we give. And because we always know, government creates policies, and we understand that a lot of pressure is there in terms of reaching out to more and more children. So we sign up MOUs along with governments in the local states, across India. And currently, we have a few MOUs that have been signed, and we work along with the government to ensure this process is embedded into their work, so that we can create a more impactful result going forward.
I would just like to add to that government school. I don't know how things are with all of you there. It would be great to know how things are. But here, when we work in government school, it's like the human resource is so limited. I'm personally working in a school in a primary school that has grade 1 to 5, 50 students and just one principal. There is no teacher. So, special educators are something which is even unthought of. They're there, but then they have a whole big block to cover. So it would be good to know what kind of supports do you have in your government schools. Archana, there's another question.
One more question, and then we can
Yeah.
go to the FANA team as
Sure,
well. But
sure.
as Sabha mentioned, I think one of the reasons for having this exercise was also for all of you to think about the countries that you come from, the context that you come from, and see whether you relate to what the team is saying, so that are there solutions that they are offering that you can also take back to your own respective context. So please keep that reflection in mind as we also proceed with this. There's a question from Innocent, if you would like to
From your
answer.
lessons, what is the most low cost effective method of training many teachers, considering financial challenges that government schools face? Sabha, would you like to go for that?
I would say our PIA cohorts. So what we have lately, after the model school program came up and this problem of resources kept coming up, so we decided to sign up MOUs with the government for PI, for the Perkins International Academy cohort. So what we do underneath is we make a cohort of about 25, 26 special educators that the government has and run our PIA, that is our curriculum, teacher training curriculum with them. So the state takes on the expenses for the special educators traveling, stay, meals, etc. And we do our own expenses.
Yeah.
And that
So,
is, please go
So
ahead.
when it means our own expenses, thank you for that question on financial challenges. We have something called as the corporate social responsibility in our country, which mandates all corporates, to contribute 2% of their profits every year. So we as an organization, along with the school that we sign MOU with, we tap this resource so that we can support the school, not just for training purposes, but also to ensure we are able to provide the infrastructure support if it is necessary, or even the material support if it is possible. So all this goes into our proposal, and we see how we can work through it at every step of our work. I think we stop here, Tejaswini, so we
Yes.
can take
So
up.
if we could just thank you for the questions that are there from George. I think Anamika had her hand up and Shreya has a question. We can just park these for after the FANA team has presented, but please keep dropping in your questions. Very grateful for the engagement.
Thank you.
Ashley, Dr. Abe, are we good to go now? Okay, I can see you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Just a minute. Let me just download this one.
No problem. Just to set the context, what Archana and Sabha spoke about in the Indian context about the challenges, the barriers, the problem statement, Archie and Dr. Abe will talk about it in the Ethiopian context and then talk about their model and how they are teacher training in FANA. Over to you.
Wonderful. Jen, do you want to share? Yeah, please share slide. Do you want us to share our slides?
Yes, Dr. Abe, up to you. You can also talk through or present whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, okay. Okay, there it is. Share.
Coming up. Yes, we can see.
Yes. All right. Okay, let me expand.
Perfect.
I hope you can see the slide now after a little bit of ordeal. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Asche, my colleague Asche and myself, my name is Abe. My colleagues and myself are here today to talk a little bit about the Ethiopian inclusive education in the Ethiopian landscape, education and social service landscape. So I think in the interest of time, so our values, we represent a local nonprofit, which is one of the grantees of Oak Foundation. Our organization is called FANA Ethiopia. FANA in the Ethiopian language of Amharic means guiding light. So we were established to provide help and services, supports to individuals having various learning difficulties, as well as communication disorders. So we were established in 2012 by educators, like-minded therapists, so with a mission to empower children with learning and communication difficulties. So it's been now over a decade now since we have been providing center-based and school-based services. We also do awareness creation trainings and professional development courses among other activities. So our values and approach are empathy, like you said, most of you said earlier, empathy, and equality, cultural relevance, because as you know, most of you know, learning differences, especially those that are related to literacy, are highly linked to language and writing systems. So we here at FANA, we ensure that our assessment materials, intervention protocols, and procedures are culturally and linguistically relevant because uh, even though many of these learning differences are the same at the level of humanity, the neurological basis for these learning differences are the same, but the way they manifest themselves differ from language to language. They differ from writing system or orthography to orthography. So we ensure that our definitions of learning differences, our assessments, and our interventions are linguistically, culturally relevant. So we also use tools for classrooms and school environment, and for also center-based interventions. So some of our services are professional development courses related to teacher development and then parent empowerment. We have professional development courses, and we have also recently developed a diploma course in association with one of the universities in Somaliland. And we also have online and center-based learning platforms We also have various community engagement and awareness campaigns. So let me not take much of, let me go straight to the challenge we have, impact and testimonials, media, and okay. So challenge related to learning differences in Ethiopia. We have low awareness and stigma. So this is not particularly true for learning differences. It is true for most of the disabilities, not just the difficulties, but it is true for disability at large as well. So we also have chronic severe lack of trained professionals in the area, inadequate resources in schools, language and cultural disconnections. Like you said, this is one of the areas that we really work on. I might come back to some of these slides. Let me just go to bridging the policy gaps, learning differences. So just to wrap up the challenge, the first challenge, like I mentioned earlier, is related to general public awareness, lack of awareness among the general populace. So we have very limited understanding of learning differences, which leads to stigma and discrimination and abuses on children having these difficulties. And many educators are not trained to identify and support students with learning differences in Ethiopia. So the lack of awareness is not just among the general public, but also those who claim to be better educated. They are not well aware of the various types of learning differences. So the impact is the students often face neglect, bullying by the teachers, not just by their peers, bullying by their own parents, and they are denied appropriate educational opportunities. So we conduct a range of awareness creation campaigns, and we provide trainings to educators, parents, school administrators, policymakers to foster a more inclusive environment. So the next challenge, which can be wrapped up, is lack of political will. So now, over a decade now, we have been able to provide basic awareness among policymakers and political actors, but having had adequate, fairly adequate awareness about these difficulties, there is still lack of political will and commitment. As a result, we have policy gaps. As a result, we have resource allocation problems and implementation of even the generic policies and legislations that we have related to disabilities. So these are challenges related to a lack of political will and commitment. The third challenge is lack of appropriate policies. So once we are able to convince the government officials, policymakers, the kind of policies that we have, even the process of policy making, the process of policy development is not inclusive of those affected, or it's not even inclusive of the process itself. It's not inclusive of people who are experts in the area. So as a result, we have policies, but they are not appropriate enough to address the issues directly. So the existing policies, while there are some which are generic, they often are not comprehensive or specific to learning differences. And we also have implementation gaps, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. So policies, even if these inadequate policies are there, the implementation is still a problem. So this is related to teacher training policies, curriculum issues, standardization issues, etc. So the fourth challenge is lack of appropriate and inadequate implementation. Again, like I said before, we have these fairly generic, even though they are not specific, even not they are not up to date. Even applying them, implementing these policies remains to be a challenge in Ethiopia. So as a result, we have difficulties in infrastructure, resources, teacher training, curricula, and practices. And we also have issues around monitoring and evaluation because we have weak mechanism to assess and ensure the effectiveness of inclusive education initiatives and policies which are in place. So for these major challenges we have identified, for instance, in terms of lack of awareness, FANA is, like I said, conducting a wide range of activities, including podcasts, community radios, campaigns, and awareness creation events, and then trainings for various sections of our community. For lack of political will and commitment, we are so much into policymakers' engagement. We try to engage with policymakers and advocate for the rights of inclusion. As a result, we have now recently managed to have the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission recognize dyslexia as a human right, or services related to dyslexia are part of the rights of every learner in Ethiopia. And very recently, probably a couple of months ago, the Ministry of Education has passed a kind of legislation saying that passed guidelines for schools across Ethiopia to ensure that any child who is able to attend class but not able to read properly has the right to sit for exams with the right help they needed. So these are the kind of results we have brought up by engaging with policymakers. For lack of appropriate policies and practices, we collaborate with educational authorities to develop and implement inclusive curricula and practices that cater for students with learning differences, to address lack of appropriate and inadequate implementation of even the existing policies. We provide specialized training programs for teachers, school administrators, to enhance their capacity to support students with learning differences, and even to challenge policymakers, to challenge the school administrators and Department of Education within their localities. So these are the kind of interventions, or how we overcome the challenge we have around inclusive education and learning differences in the Ethiopian context. So I think I should stop there, and if there are any questions, I can I think it's better to address the questions. So I think our slides are way too many. So Taja, I would like to hand over back to you, and I'll Asche and myself will address any questions.
Sure, Dr. Ravi. There was a question by George on what is the status of tertiary education in relation to learners with disability?
Yeah, we have a policy in the government where it says universities and teacher training colleges, institutes can launch programs in a special education. So teachers these days, any teacher in across the country would have at least one course through their teacher training programs. So when teachers graduate from colleges, at least they have one course in inclusive and special education. So those courses are generic, very generic, and they largely focus on visible disabilities such as hearing or visual impairments or mobility issues, intellectual disabilities, which are very noticeable. So these courses do not particularly cover issues related to these hidden disabilities or disabilities which we consider as covered. So yes, we have academic programs across teacher training institutes and colleges. as well as universities providing diploma programs, BA programs, and even master's and PhD programs in special education, inclusive education. But given that Ethiopia is a huge country, like nearly no compared to India, of course, but our population size is one of the second largest populous country. Ethiopia is one of the second largest populous country with a population of nearly 150 million and with a very large linguistic diversity, ethnic and linguistic diversity. So the trainees that are coming out of these academic programs are not, in terms of quantity as well as quality, they are not able to satisfy the needs, the massive needs existing in the country. So in terms of tertiary education, yes, we do have programs, but the capacity to produce capable professionals in a good number is not yet there.
I think George has a follow-up. George, would you want to unmute and ask, or shall I read out the question?
Yes. Thank you so much. I can ask. This is George from Kenya.
Hey, brother George, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm happy to hear about this, the good work you are doing in Ethiopia.
Thank you. We should communicate. I mean, you are next door and we don't know each other.
Yes, I'm very passionate about disability. That is my field.
Excellent.
Yes. So my question is
I know Felix, and we've been communicating Felix through African Dyslexia Organization. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry
Yes.
for the interruption.
So I'm really trying to understand the status of enrollment of learners with a disability in terms of the tertiary level. Because with us in Kenya, we are still struggling on how we can give them the hand-based skills that will help them to channel their way through being independent. I know a lot has been done in the lower level in terms of giving them skills, but my bigger question is, what is the status of tertiary institutions enrollment of CWD?
Yeah. So,
Yes.
like I said, thank you so much, George. That's a very good question. So, like I said before, you know, in Ethiopian in policies related to disabilities in Ethiopia, I think largely disabilities that are considered or that are visible are the ones which are considered or the ones which are recognized by the policy and practice. So, for instance, dyslexia, no document you would find in the Ethiopian policy and legislation, no document explicitly stating dyslexia or any other specific learning difficulties as an issue. So, because the policies do not explicitly recognize these hidden disabilities, schools, even at lower level, do not recognize these children, let alone universities recognizing them. So, or tertiary education recognizing them. So, yes, we have a fairly good recognition of and acceptance and enrollment of individuals having visible learning, visible disabilities, such as mobility or hearing or vision impairments, etc. But those who have these hidden specific learning disabilities and those who have, of course, intellectual disabilities do not have as much opportunities as the other groups because, you know, these hidden disabilities are not recognized by policy and not many people know them anyway.
Kyaze, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Kyaze?
I also want to thank Doctor for your presentation. But this is Edward Chaze from Uganda, and they're building tomorrow. I just want you to share a brief experience of being that Ethiopia, you are around 150 millions. So how is your education management information system? Do you have standardized education management information system that supports you with the specific tools that collects the data around children with disability in the entire country?
Wonderful question. Yeah, that's one of the areas that we, as a government, Ethiopia as a country is working on at the moment. So far, we don't have that kind of system. So we don't have a standardized system. We don't have a standardized assessments. And please note that in Ethiopia, we have this mother tongue education at lower levels. And given that the country is a federal system, each state, each regional administrative state has its own kind of education policy. So the system, information documentation, data kind of development or data accumulation, generation of data, and access of data, whether it is on assessment or learning, is not centralized and it's not standardized. So at the moment, we have heard that the Ministry of Education at the federal level is working on developing a tech kind of to modernize, digitize data handling mechanism. So we are hoping that in the years to come, we will have a very efficient system whereby the country would enjoy a standardized and centralized and accessible kind of information processing and management system. We have Innocent. I hope I addressed your question, sir. My brother from Uganda. And
Yes,
also
you've addressed it very well.
all right, thank you very much. And we also have a hand, Innocent.
And also, just before Innocent, you come in, if we did have like a whole group activity plan, but I also see there are many questions. So if you have questions for the FANA team or the Perkins team, please raise your hand, drop it in the chat, and you can come off mute as well. Innocent, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. My question I posted already in the chat, but I'm more interested in the advocacy aspect, which you have addressed, that you're doing advocacy, looking at the issue of stigma, self-stigma. So I just want to see what are some of the ways that we can apply even in our projects to help children to be self-advocates for their own rights and safety.
Would you like to respond? Hearing the question right? Could you please, Innocent, could you please repeat your question? I think I might have misunderstood it already. What are stigma reduction? Please repeat it again.
All right. In short, how can we have a project on inclusive education? So I would like to understand from your side, what are some of the best strategies or best ways of empowering children to be self-advocates, to advocate for their own rights and safety within the school and in the community and in the homes?
Yeah. So one strategy that we use is working with special education clubs in the school. So we engage teachers. Once we train teachers on awareness as well as we provide technical trainings for teachers. Once teachers receive those trainings, what they do is they go back to their school and establish a learning difference club whereby children having some issues could take part in those activities. So the activities, these clubs, the learning differences clubs at school, use the school's mini media to educate the larger school community and to advocate for themselves. So that's one of the things that we do at school. But for children who are coming to our center for assessment, apart from doing assessment and identifying their challenge, we do have a counseling and empowerment sessions whereby we advise these children. We tell them that it's not their problem. They just learn differently, and there is nothing wrong with them. And they have to advocate for their own rights. And they are facing all these challenges through no fault of their own. They are facing all these challenges because the population they are not aware of this challenge, and the government or people in the government are not aware of this challenge. As a result, we don't have a system which protects them. So we tell them that there are lots of very famous people, innovative people who are considered as, smart and change makers, who also have learning issues. So we empower them, we inspire them, we try to provide them the strategies to advocate for themselves. So that is Ashley would like to add on this one as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. To add a little bit more on the advocacy strategy that we use to reduce the stigma behind the learning difference in general. Another area is in which, we have a parent group on Telegram whose number is increasing day by day now. So what we do is that we let each and every parent share ideas regarding the advent of learning differences, some of the strategies they come up. So on a frequent basis, these parents communicate each other. So we, as a FANA team, also intervene sometimes and share some ideas. And together we discuss on the chats. Another strategy is that we have this podcast customized in local language, in Amharic. We frequently carry out this podcast and post it in YouTube and TikTok. And so that's another area in which we address the advocacy related to stigma. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I think there's a question from Anamika. Perkins team, would you like to answer this? I was about to ask how you educate parents to also normalize the conversations.
Sorry again, Taja.
Yes, Dr. Ravi.
A heavy rain is falling, so the voice is compromised. Could you please speak a little bit louder and repeat the question, please?
Absolutely, yes. So I was asking the Perkins team, Anamika has a question on how do you educate parents to normalize conversations as well? Archana,
Yeah. Sabha, you want to go for it or?
You started.
Okay. So thank you so much for the question, Anamika. So we also have, parent engagement discussion meetings in small groups, realizing that parents of children, especially in the lower income groups in both slums and in rural areas, are largely daily wage laborers, or probably they have a farm or they have a large family to manage. They hardly have time. But we try and see, along with the teachers' support, try and bring these parents together. And if it's not parents, we consider it as family. So we always tell that, let's not focus just on parents. We work as, bring the family in. So sometimes we've seen siblings come in, grandparents come in, uncles, aunts come in. Sometimes even the neighbors who are very invested, they come in for this, sessions. And we train the teachers to engage with these parents as to understand, how each one of them are facing, similar challenges within their communities. Because sometimes when we are talking to these parents, we've realized that they're actually surprised that, oh, is it so? In your community also, you have this problem with your child not being accepted. Oh, is it so that the child doesn't have a friend who is even in the neighborhood? So when they start realizing that there are these, similar issues or similar challenges that exist within the parents, they're able to have conversations, a little more, trusted conversations. And when it comes to training, we do train them on the various, disabilities, that because sometimes the parents coming from these lower economic groups, they may not know the terminology, and that's not what we are focusing on. We are trying to see how they can understand the disability of their child, identify what other markers they need to look for, and also try and see that what is the kind of support that they're receiving at school, or what is the kind of support that they can give within the homes. And when we say normalizing conversations, I was just typing to the question Oliver has shared here, how social inclusion happens. In fact, families are the best way to build social inclusions, and that normalizes conversation about disability itself and inclusion itself. So luckily for India, we have a lot of festivals, we have a lot of cultural events, and throughout the year. So the schools, what they do is they map these cultural festivals and days within the school itself, and we invite these parents. They come, they kind of interact with each other, they engage with each other. And the beauty is, this is not just parents of children who are having disability. There are also parents who are children of non-disabled, children who are studying in the same school, who come for those events. So it becomes a very common ground of talking, familiarizing, and engaging with each other. That's exactly where we break the ice. So Sabha, yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to talk about two ways which actually worked for us while we were working with schools. One was, you saw a picture of a parent networking group. We're talking about normalizing conversations around disability and of their own child. So we divided them into age groups, because certain ages have certain common difficulties that they want to discuss. So we started with networking of a parent networking group for disabled kids, but then slowly we brought in the parents of non-disabled peers. After we saw that this trust was formed in one group, that worked really well in taking the conversation from this closed group of parents with disabilities to all parents. That was one thing that helped us normalize this conversation. The second is that India is a very community-based kind of a society. What we see in our rural setup is that the small rural communities are actually run by the elders of the village. So we took this conversation to the elders of the village panchayat, the local politician, and we took this conversation there. We invited them to the schools. We invited them to the school to see what all the kids were doing. And that also opened up the window of having this, normalizing this conversation in their own community. They went back, they talked to parents. And that was also another way which, another method that actually helped us in normalizing this conversation.
Yeah.
That is just what I wanted to.
Yeah. Thanks, Sabha, and thanks, Archana. Just one quick point before somebody else comes in. I was just thinking about the school to home continuum has to be there, home to school, because sometimes we always think about, okay, we are addressing these challenges within the school premises, with the teachers, with the whatever support you are trying to give or trying to bring for them. But if it is not happening in the home space, then it doesn't work. Means this is what we have learned so far, and we have also found it very challenging, specifically for those low income group, means the children who are either having laborer parents or migrants or coming from different, and they very quickly change a lot of schools and lot of locations. That is the biggest problem, and there the address of whatever work that you have done for last 6 months or maybe a year, that goes all in vain. So that is where I was just thinking, if how do we build that system? I think through SMCs, school management committees, or through parents or something like that, that will be really helpful. But loved what you have shared, means it's really something that we can take away as a learning for me also, and I'll bring it back to my team also. Thanks for sharing, Archana and Sabha.
Anamika, if I could just come in and just add about this. So thank you so much. You actually pointed out the greatest challenge we have with the slum communities in the cities, or so the migrating population. So what Sabha mentioned about creating parent networking groups, we're also trying to see, because now I think thanks to COVID, all of us have kind of got aware that phone is something that is there, most of the people are having at least one phone per family, even if they are from
Right.
low income group. So we're trying to see how they can engage on WhatsApp or maybe call. So we kind of, in one of the schools, schools in the slums of Mumbai, what we did was we got everybody to have numbers of all the parents after we created the group. And we encourage them that in case you don't see a parent or a child coming for a long period of time, you be the person to give a call. So there is this one leader of that team, and we encourage them saying, you give that call. So of course the teacher is also monitoring and saying, did you know why this child didn't come, and things like that. So there is conversations happening, at least there is dialogue happening, and there is continuum that you mentioned that's happening. And
Yeah.
for the relativity of keeping the learning going on, in small bursts of information, the parents are constantly given inputs about what is it that they should not, it's a non-negotiable item that they cannot miss out working with the child as practice. And what are some things that, okay, fine, in case they forget, they have not read a book for the child, that's okay. But if they have not done the therapy, for probably a fine motor skill, or probably how the child can walk better, that's something if the child has learned and not done, then how it's going to kind of regress, and how the parents are going to have more effort to put in later on when they come back to school. So that is negotiable, non-negotiable. That is something that we keep talking about to the parents all the time. So it's okay if they didn't eat a fruit, but they probably started repeating the words that they have learned in class. So yeah, that's something that we talk about.
It means parents also need to prioritize is what means. I feel that this is what is important for the child, because in slum areas, as many as children they have, they think they are all working hands. So
Yes.
perhaps we also need to bring them out of that mindset.
Yes.
And that will help, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks, Anamika. So what was your question, similar to what Nazia has asked in the chat? I saw that your hand was raised earlier.
Hi. So yeah, my question was somewhat similar. I just wanted to know more about how you guys engage parents, especially the team Perkins, because I'm from Pakistan and we kind of have the same, kind of country cultures and all. So kind of face a lot of difficulty when bringing in parents or reaching out to schools, to actually make them understand how inclusion works, or how inclusive education works, because not all schools are willing to actually comply with what we're working from. I specifically work for individuals with Down syndrome, and it's really hard to get them into schools and then teach the teachers or train them on how to teach them, what to teach them, because again capacity ka bahut masla aata hai. The problem is ke we want to know, as in I want to know in person, okay, how do you bring in parents on board? You know how Sabha and Archana said that we bring in parents on board, not just the parents who has individual disabilities in their home, but typical parents as well. I would want to know more about that.
Sabha, before
I
you
will-
answer,
Yeah, so
there's also a very similar question from Nazia, who said, can you share how parents from lower economic groups have changed mindset and are supporting the children with disabilities in their communities? In the interest of time, if both Perkins and the FANA team could answer it in their context to give like a more Africa-based and like an Asia, India-based context, so that would be really helpful. And just while Sabha and Dr. Rabe or Ache answer, I'm also just going to request my colleague to launch the poll. This poll will help us make the sessions better and take your feedback. So while you're listening in, please just also answer the poll. Please go ahead, Sabha.
yeah, that's such a nice question. Thank you for answering that, because I think we left that out in our presentation, and this gives me time to cover that. So, when we talk about inclusion, it's always inclusive education. And now we're talking about families. So let's just take a step backwards. So what we did in this school, the particular case study that we shared with you, was that the teachers started going, visiting communities and homes of children of parents who had disabled kids, right? And while working with the parent, they did not talk about inclusive education. They only talked about the child participating at home. So, they talked about really simple things about, like daily living skills. How's the child doing that? How can you help? I remember one simple thing was where the bottom washing was really difficult, and they just used a little hose. And the parent was like, yeah, why didn't I think of it? That is how we started. And that from there, we brought the child into school. So we did a lot of home visits, a lot of community visits. And that kind of built a bridge of, like when parents see value in their home, when parents see their child who was maybe just sitting there now trying to be participative, or when they understand the child's natural form of communication, like we used to ask parents, how does a child, like, how does the child tell you that they're happy, or how do you know that your child is not very happy? And they would say, doesn't do anything, doesn't indicate. But when we had these sessions with the parents, he would sit with them, talk to them, and then they were like, yeah, I think he just, the child kind of changes the posture. And now we know that it is enough. Now they're telling us no. So, we started with those little things before bringing the child into school. So inclusive education came much later. It was about the parents seeing the value of participation, and not even talking about independence here. It's kind of overrated. I'm just talking about a child being participative in all activities. So you have a meal time, the child is not inside lying down on a bed there, and they're there. So once they're there, that participation, the bond began to happen. And that is how so gradually the child came to school. I hope that answers your question about how we worked. So we did it we did the exact opposite. We didn't ask them to come to school. We said, okay, we are coming to your homes, you're coming to your communities. Be ready for us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sabha. Thank you.
To close this, Dr. Abe, would you like to answer that from the Ethiopia? Sorry, Archana, were you saying something?
No, sorry.
Okay. I know we are out of time, but if the FANA team had any similar case studies or any concluding remarks.
Note on the chat saying that a heavy rain is falling, and we sort of missed a bit of the conversation after our presentation. So anyway, thank you so much for the opportunity. Taja, thank you so much for your diligence, by the way, and efficiency. That's really wonderful. So thank you all for your contribution. We have learned a lot, and hopefully we will have other platforms whereby we could share experiences, learn from each other, and we consider this as a great opportunity. Thank you so much. Asche has something to add. Do you have anything to add?
Okay, thank you, everyone. This has been a great opportunity to share many ideas. And if you have any other questions regarding and any opportunities to collaborate, we will be very much welcome, or we are open. And we will share our email or our contact information with Taja. Thank you once again for meeting you all.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Dr. Abe. Thank you, Archana. Thank you, Sabha. I will share your email IDs with the participants who have joined us. There were several questions we couldn't get to, unfortunately, for the lack of time. But you can, of course, reach out to our presenters and talk to them. In our next session, we'll be coming back on the 18th of June with inclusive curricula and adaptive assessment strategies with Building Tomorrow and the team of CAST, which is based out of US. Hoping to see you all there, and I hope you've been able to fill the form, the poll. Thank you so much.